This is the first meeting we've had everybody in a while. And the first thing on the agenda, they had a zoning change for 115 Racebrook Road. I don't know enough about this. Does someone else know more about this? Christina or anybody?
Yeah, Chris, I ended up going to the CUPOP meeting last month, where they sort of talked about this, and Nicole filled me in a little bit. I think it was some of the similar stuff that she gave to you. So this property is on just off Racebrook. I've tried to drive by it, and honestly, I asked her if we could do a site visit and take a look at it. So it sounds like they want to, in part of the recommendations to the town, this land they think could be used for agricultural purposes, knowing that we in the past have said that we want to keep and preserve farmland. I'm not sure that they specifically have someone interested in being the farmer or the tenant. So it would be a potential opportunity for someone. Some of it is wetland and some of it is covered in invasive species. So I do think there are, and shrubs and things like that. So I do think there are some barriers to entry. However, the folks in the CUPOP committee have identified some grant funding that would help to assist a farmer in doing this. So basically, I think their recommendation would be to change the zoning category so that it could be used for agriculture. I don't think that necessarily means, that we have to come up with a farmer for that land, but that it could be used for that purpose. So I don't see that there's anything wrong with making that designation, but I do think it might be worth maybe even with a member of CUPOP doing a site walk, one of us, to see if it's even feasible to get someone in there. I mean, first of all, I think you'd need road access if you were going to bring a tractor in, which I think you would need if there was large scale scrubby brush stuff.
So is this the property? I'm just trying to figure out where it is at 115. So you come out where Center Road comes out, and then you come to the first four-way intersection if you're going towards Orange. And then you continue going out that way. And is this the property on the left-hand side, about maybe a half a mile from the next four-way intersection?
Yes, I think so. It's past, there's like a big new build on the left-hand side there, if you're going south on Racebrook.
Yeah.
Or east, or south, I think maybe.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's right there. There's a little bit of, gosh, I don't know what that stream is. It maybe the Weepog there. But yeah, like some water running through. It's before the Racebrook tracks, but
right. But it's before the Weppawag River there. That's the Weppawag. So it'd be there on the left-hand side. I think many, many years ago, somebody used to do something there when I was a little kid, probably. It's got to be 55 years ago. Somebody did something there. I don't know if they hated or what they did years ago. But there used to be a small building there, too, on the left-hand side. I think you'll probably see a foundation or something.
Oh, okay.
This property on Google Maps.
Yeah.
You said it's before Racebrook Track, and it's before the Weppawag crosses Racebrook Road.
Yeah, there's a cemetery on the right-hand side.
Oh, yes. It's across from the cemetery.
Yeah, you know where the cemetery is, right?
Yeah. And it looks like a disaster.
Yeah, it is a disaster. It's been open overgrown for probably the last 50 years.
Okay.
So, I mean, I guess I have no problem with it changing its zoning. I just think it might be challenging for anyone to step in there and do anything.
I would agree with you there. There's a lot of work that has to be done.
I have a quick question. Who requested the zoning change? was it QPOP themselves? Or is it the owner who requested it?
Do you remember what Nicole's email had said about
I
that,
have it in my
Chris?
notes from last week.
No, I don't. I do not remember. I don't
wanna
have it
say
here with me.
It was Jason Morello or something. Is that I don't have my notes pulled up. That's in my head.
Okay. Yeah, I just had
I could see if I could find that
in my notes. That's okay. I'm just curious. Like, I'm wondering why did somebody want to farm it? But then you said there is no.
I thought at first it sounded like the person who made the request wanted to farm it, but then when I talked to Nicole, it kind of sounded like he just wanted to see it be used. And I think QPOP has an interest in making any of the town lands that they own usable. So maybe connecting it to trails or having it be potential sites for open space or this or that. Or I think they're making recommendations to the town that, we don't need to keep this teeny tiny piece of property that nobody can use. And so they'd sell it.
I would be concerned about the river and what you'd be allowed to, like, what would be feasible that close to the river, either like what you're allowed to do close to wetlands and what you can do.
That floods over quite a bit too, especially
yeah, like you can't take a tractor back there. You wouldn't be allowed to have animals. You might or might not be allowed to have a lot of animals back there. That kind of restricts your possibilities.
I mean, how many acres are we talking about there? Does anybody know?
I can't remember. I think it's a fairly sizable piece of land, but I think maybe I'm not sure about this. Again, I'm driving, so I can't pull up all of the past things. But I think it was something like maybe there is 30 acres, but they were estimating that, 5 or 6 were farmable. So maybe what I can do is maybe this week I can try to go and walk the property, and then I can also look at the kind of like the geological survey map and even look at the wetland stuff. I could even see if I could pull or do one of those ag determinations, land use determinations. That I think maybe the FSA, is it the FSA that does that?
I think it's
Farm Service Agency, maybe?
That USDA?
I don't know if USDA works with FSA to do it, but I can ask about whoever is supposed to do that. Because if they do say that it's all wetlands, then I think that is a clear answer. And if we see that there's too many invasives and too many hurdles, then it doesn't make sense to give someone the headache of dealing with
that's a big
years and years of neglect. Yeah. Okay, so I think it sounds like we're pretty much in agreement that it doesn't seem very farmable, but I'll maybe walk it just to make sure.
Yeah, I think just I think just to be prudent, I think we should at least just walk through the property and get an idea of what it looks like. But I know that floods quite a bit. I've seen the water in there 4 feet deep sometimes when we've had some real heavy rains and everything, especially last when they had the floods over in Oxford and everything, and we had a lot of rain that day. Those fields were flooded, and then you're not getting in there for 2-3 weeks afterwards. So I mean, I just don't think the property is really worth all the work to try to get in there. I just don't, and I don't. I don't. If you're going to do something, everything costs so much money today. I mean, you have to really look at it before you're going to start investing time and energy. But I think we should at least walk it, and then we can get a better idea. And maybe Christina, if you're walking it, just take some pictures of the area of what you're seeing, and then you could relay them back, and we could use those as part of like our next meeting. Does that work?
Yeah, I think that sounds great. I'll definitely do that.
Okay. You want to move on? Yeah, we had some other things here. Coop-op updates and farmable properties. I think that was basically, is there other properties, Christina, that we should know about?
Yeah, sort of. I went in part because I had missed the Ag Commission meeting, and I knew they were going to be talking about this 115 Racebrook Road thing and the former country club.
Right.
So I went for that reason, but they ended up talking about a bunch of different areas. So for a little bit of context, I think we talked about this in one of our meetings, and Chris, maybe you had kind of given us an introduction to Coop-op, and maybe that they wanted some of us to go to their meetings.
Right.
But basically,
right.
The Committee on Use of Publicly Owned Property is, I think that's what it stands for. They're reviewing all of these properties, and I mean, I'm telling you, they have a ton of addresses to go through, and they do these in-depth reviews, including the history of the property and different legal things that maybe have come up with, and all of these things. But just in going through their list, they talked briefly about the Fitzgerald Tract. Is that the cornfield?
That's the cornfield. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the cornfield.
Okay, yeah. So they talked briefly about that in the context of making space for police stuff or fire stuff. That wasn't specifically on their agenda. It just kind of came up as like, this is something that we need to keep in mind. And then they also talked about some of the land that I lease, which is connected to the Pease Place Playground Park. They want to improve the park, which I think is amazing and I think would be great for the town. And they didn't know that some of the open space there is farmed and leased by me, or also just leased by any farmer in the town. They didn't know that they thought it was just magical open space. And they wanted to put tennis courts and pickleball courts and an ice rink and all sorts of things. So it was good that I was at the meeting because I could kind of say that it is farmable land. There were a few other properties that they talked about as potential farmland sites, including the country club, which is also on our agenda. But so basically, I just wanted to mention this because if I can, I'm going to try to go to those meetings. It's the fourth Monday at 6 p.m., I think, of the month. I kind of learned a lot about the town. It was also just interesting to hear all of these things. But I do think that they should know what are currently leased properties with farm leases. So I'm going to forward that list, which I think we have from previous meetings.
Jerry has, or not Jerry, but Allison now, because she has all the contracts that we sign, every year that we sign, Christina, that will show what properties or give the proper address for every one. So Allison should have all that. We could
I'll get that list. Whatever's the updated list of that from Allison, and make sure that they have that. But if there's any other, if any of you know of things, or if I see something come up and think it could be farmable, I think they would like to have our input on that. It's on their minds, but again, it doesn't seem like they necessarily knew all of the things.
Well, you talk about the country club. They did farm that years ago, and they used to. My dad and his family and stuff used to use those fields years and years ago before they turned it into the country club. And the right along, Johnson Road there and everything used to graze all the cows and everything years ago. But, they've let it go now for the last 10 years. And there hasn't really been a plan put together to do something there. And I think it's time for the town really to let's get a plan put together and figure out what we're going to do with the property. It just starts sitting there and sitting there and sitting there. And I tell you, it looks pretty ugly when you drive by there. I mean, it's getting all overgrown. It's getting to a point where, people, when we first bought it for $7 million, we were going to do something, and we haven't done anything for over 10 years. So hopefully we come up with a plan, and maybe there'll be a piece of it maybe they could use for agriculture and do that. And then hopefully that's something that, Coupop will look at as well. I mean, it is a great location.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of my thoughts there. But
Chris,
yeah,
you don't by any chance have like a sense, like on a map, where your dad farmed? Do you?
Right, yeah, right on Johnson Road there. So if you go down Johnson Road and you start to go around the corner where there used to be a big barn there, but the barn burned down, and then they have like a utility shed there and everything, and they use it for the golf course there. So that whole street there, as you're going down towards Orange, all from the left, from Ansonia Road, all the way down on the left, all that flat land there, because you see, if you look to the left there were the ponds and everything. So that's why the cattle grazed out there, and then they go into the ponds, they could drink water and everything, and then they'd bring them in and just put them across the street and go milk them. And they let the other fields that were on the other side of the street that went over towards the parkway and everything, so they could grow, the grass could grow and everything, and then they'd have some more opportunity to let, they put them in different areas so they could control the, grass and everything, and then they didn't have to feed them up so much hay and grain and things like that. That's many years ago, though. That's a long time ago. But that's what they did, and then they started building houses. Then the country club came. And then when we bought the country club, it's now sat, I bet you it's sat now 15 years there. So, but that's where it was, all on the flatland, not up on the hill there and anything, but just all the lower portion of the property there.
Did was that ever part of like the Baldwin farm?
No, that's over. The Baldwin farm was off of Racebrook Road there.
Yeah, but I knew they had like a ton of land, so I didn't know.
Yeah, well, the Baldwin property there is, if you go out where the golf course is.
Yeah,
now they're going to turn it out into a solar panel field, I guess. That's what it's going to be turned into.
Yeah.
And to the front 9 holes of where Oak Lane used to be, the Baldwin's owned. And then the back 9 holes of Oak Lane is where my family, my father's family, owned all the back 9 holes. Okay. And that's what came out to Johnson Road there and everything. They owned all that way. That's how it was the access there. And then they used that road to get out to Route 34 and everything. That's how they used to go out that way.
Yeah.
So, but it's, like everything changes over the years. So you try to look at areas and say what would be most advantageous for the town and how should we tackle it. And, everybody has an idea, and I think now it's time to put some of those ideas together and let's see where it would go. So before they go and do something, I mean, I think Coupop definitely has, they'll be very important, and we can say, look, I think some of this area we can use for, farming or do something with it within the community. So hopefully. Does anybody else have anything else they'd like to add to that?
That sounds like a great idea. Either that or we just go in one night and start guerrilla farming.
Yeah. The next thing we're at number 3, and I'm trying to say, it says A1 or AI meeting minutes.
AI minutes, I think. Yeah. So I have running to take meeting minutes.
Yeah. So, were you good with that, Leland? Are you?
Yeah. The town said no problem.
Yeah.
And I'll just forward the transcripts and summary from it.
Okay.
Have you started that for today?
Yep.
Okay, great. I'll stop taking notes now.
And then,
thank you. I should have opened with that.
So do you just submit them to Allison then, and then she'll move forward with everything?
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you, Leland. Then we have Country Club West. What's TAC initial report? What does that mean? Town.
Oh yeah. So sorry, I also sent Allison a thing about that. There's a technical advisory committee, kind of doing exactly what you just suggested, Chris.
Yeah.
The Board of Selectmen have started working with a group of consultants to put together, basically to put together feedback that could outline a plan for how the space could be used. It is not a development proposal. So in the past, the town has received proposals from the Toll Brothers or from Insight or, whatever,
right.
For, what to do with the property. This is incorporating stakeholder feedback. And so the Technical Advisory Committee has people from different commissions and things in the town, so sustainability, CUPOP, the Ag Commission. And so I went to a TAC meeting, Technical Advisory Committee. I think it's advisory. And basically the hope from this, my initial report, as I just wanted to let you know, we've only met together one time, but they are asking for our commission, the Ag Commission, to provide subject matter expertise. So Chris, what you just said about it having kind of recent historical use as a farm, and I think even further back, it's probably been used as farmland, and also maybe some of the input that we could give on actual, if we look at.
Do they?
Sorry, go ahead.
Do they want to must make a presentation to this committee or to the Board of Selectmen? How do they want to go about doing that, Christina? Did they say?
Yeah, I think we could probably draft or start to be putting together some of our comments on the usability of that property. So I think that if we had that, I think we present it to the Board of Selectmen, and I think the consultants are present, but I think the Board of Selectmen are the people who hear our technical advice.
I'll put some things down and put some things together for that. And then we can share it at the next meeting together, some of the things that I feel, and if everybody wants to contribute or has other things they're thinking of, we add it to it or subtract to it and then we have something from us, a statement from us from the Agricultural Commission. So we could.
Is there a time that they want to hear from us by, Christina?
I think this process is supposed to take about 6 months, starting in December was when that first meeting happened. So I think by the end of May is when they're hoping to wrap it up. If we could have something at the next meeting, we can always add and refine to it. But I think having some information to give to the consultants earlier is probably better, because then we can be using that and building on that as they're putting things together. And also, if there's anybody who you think is not present at this table, I think Steve is on the Board of Selectmen. He knows this is happening, but maybe there's someone at Basaro, or maybe there are other farmers who might have some specific interest in the country club property and want to have their voice heard. They would be, I think we can relay that as well to the TAC.
I know of somebody in particular that was interested, has reached out to me a couple of times, and I said there was nothing really going on there, but what I'll do is I'm going to reach out. I'm going to put highlight some things that I think that we should bring up that would be of interest to our commission as well as the town, and when we can add to it or subtract to it, And then we have our pretty much like a statement of where we're at for right now. And I think that might help this commission take a look at it and just get an idea where we're coming from. And maybe they have questions for us too as well. So that's where I think, yeah, because I had talked to Mika a little, and he mentioned that they were going to be putting this together, and I said you have to do something because to see the property go the way it is right now is something that shouldn't, and we can make good use of it in many different ways. So I'm sure doing this will all get in the right direction, and hopefully we'll see something really prosper from all this. Anyways, I'm gonna, does anybody else have anything they'd want to say about this, or can I move on to the next item on the agenda? And the next thing on the agenda was lease extensions, discussed presenting to the Board of Selectmen. So this is something that we've been talking about for quite a while, since we even started the commission. And we were always looking at, Christina was exceptional because she was trying to get a 5-year lease so you can get some federal grants or state grants. And if you don't have 5 years, they basically won't talk to you. So we tried to go a couple different ways about it, have the town, Christina, correct me if I'm wrong, but Christina tried to get a 5-year grant, having the town apply for it, but they didn't accept that, did they, Christina? Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was because the I'll have to look back at the wording for what it was, but because it's not the town planning on doing any of the work.
Right.
Or the town having, yeah.
So you were going to do the work, but the town would have gotten the money, and then they would have had to pass it on to you. Would that be pretty, summarize it?
Yes. Yeah.
And they wouldn't go with it. I mean, a 1-year lease is you can't really do much with a property with a 1-year lease. And there's a lot going on in the town right now. I think you all realize that, the school's getting bigger. They're passing some zoning that could make the town even grow some more. So you don't really know what they're going to do with all the few properties that the town does own. But usually, in my experience, and I can validate it, I was chairman of the Public Works Garage when we built the Public Works Garage. That took probably 7 years to build by the time we were able to get everything put together, have the people approve it, the town, and then to get bids out to get things going. And I think if we go for lease extensions, maybe we can start from 1 year, maybe we can get it up to 3 years, at least 3 years. The town's not going to say, oh, you got to get off of there tomorrow because we need to use it tomorrow. The town it's never worked that way in my years of doing stuff. I mean, there's always a process, and it takes a long time to get from point A to point B to point C. And if the town sees that they're going to need to get to that property, I think 3 years is a reasonable extension for them to come out to us, but then we can plan better of what we're going to grow, what we're going to do. Some years you got to let the fields rest because you can't keep pumping away at the same thing, because then the yield decreases and you just you got to get nutrients back into the soil. So my thought is, if we go to the Board of Selectmen, I was going to try for the February meeting and maybe make a presentation of leasing out the leases from 1 to 3 years. I thought that was a start, and see how receptive they are of where they want to be.
I think that might be a good move to next month go talk to them.
Yeah.
Because it seems like with conversations they've had before, obviously we have to change the town charter in the
Yeah.
May meeting. But if we could get an idea of, because nobody's going to be eligible for these grants if we don't have 5-year leases. That's
Right.
right, Christina. So
Yeah, I think so.
before we try to get on the charter, we should feel them out and see, maybe starting with the 3-year lease, like you're saying, if 5 is off the table, we can do that. And then what we talked about, I think in November, would be seeing an example of what a presentation for a town, or what a commission has done to alter the charter before, or what their application or presentation looks like to change the actual town charter.
Yeah.
So we could at least model ours when we do get on for the May meeting after that. And maybe one that actually did change the charter.
Yeah, I think it's important to get a feel of where they're at, and also to let them know that, this is what our feelings are and where we're at with it. If we don't get on the agenda to voice our opinions, and they don't know where we're at. So I think we have to sort of step out and tell them who what we're here, what we want to do. There's some people on the committee there that, that were on our committee that are there. And I think it would be a good time to reach out to them and tell them this is where we're looking to do, and how we can move forward with this. If you're good with February, I don't really know the date right now, but whatever the Board of Selectmen meeting is for February, I could talk to Allison tomorrow and see if we can get on that meeting and just tell her, for lease extensions. And then she can get back to me, let us know when. And then if all of us could just be at the meeting, that day. Usually they try to get us off early. If we all can just be there for the show support. I can speak, or anybody else wants to speak, I'll be glad to speak. Because I've been on the other side of the table too, and it's always good to get a feel of where everyone's at, because when they're all said and done, they talk too, and they'll say, and give us that feedback where we'll say, okay, you know what, I'm glad we did this, or hey, wait, we got to change how our thinking is and how we can move forward with this. So and it gives us still time, because if we need to go back, we can go back in March. Because usually the annual town meeting is when they could change the charter if they had to. So at least we have a couple of months to play with. Does that sound like a plan with everyone? You good?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And I do think that there's what I remember happening in the past is it kind of going back and forth between, the Board of Selectmen was pretty supportive when we came a couple of years ago, right. But then once legal considered it, there was like quite a bit of, we brought something up at the meeting, then right. the town council gave some input, then, when they made their decision, they decided not to extend the lease. So I think that right. Starting sooner rather than later maybe gives us a lot more time to come to hopefully some sort of resolution, or at least we'll know what they want us to present.
Okay, so I'm gonna write this down now. Agenda. All right, I'm gonna I'll talk with Allison either tomorrow or the next day. I'll reach out to her, and then any information she gives back to me, I'll make sure she relays it all back to you guys. And if she gets us on the meeting, then I'll have her email all of us, let us know when it is, and then we can move forward with that. So that's what we'll do with that. Let's move forward, I guess. That was good. The PA 490 and impact on land valuation. So Rachel, you had to refill a new one, didn't you? I had to do one myself. I didn't realize, in my experience, that when you have a family member that passes away, and even though it's left to you in a will or a trust or everything, you still have to go back to the town and reapply and resubmit this PA 490 and everything. Just don't assume that it's there. The thing that was interesting was they had the satellites that go down on the whole plot of the land, and it's all in color and everything. And then she could almost take a red line and then they reassess it and everything. But I don't think the company that did the assessing for the town did any of that. What was your experience, Rachel?
Yeah, I know that Woodbridge, you have to reapply for PA 490 every single year, or make sure that the paperwork rolls over, which we weren't aware of.
Yeah.
New to farming in Woodbridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
I think technically it is supposed to roll over.
Yeah, but they did evaluations, and I had a death in the family, so you have a couple little things that couple of hiccups. And you got to protect yourself. So I guess you're right. Yeah, I mean, you just got to check it out every year. I guess that's the name of the game. Would that be the bottom line, I guess?
Yeah, depending on who your assessor is, you have to keep just double check to make sure that it's not. Woodbridge doesn't. There's different towns that do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and just for the when they reassess for the taxes, I know for us it was missed. Even by the company that did the assessment. So that was just appealed, and they readjusted after the appeal.
I had a readjustment myself. So, yeah, I mean, because if you don't do it, it just continues forward and you're going to pay whatever they got sitting there. So you got to appeal it.
Right. And it's a different value for the land based on if it's a regular housing lot or commercial lot versus farming lots. So that's something that I just wanted to make sure all of you knew.
Yeah.
With the increase in tax or in the different tax evaluations from this past, what was it, 2 months ago?
Yeah. We'll see what the mill rate goes next. That's where we'll see.
Yeah.
It should be exciting. That's why I keep buying lottery tickets. Maybe I'll hit the lotto. Who knows?
How's that going for you, Chris?
Well, thank you, Rachel. And then the last thing we have on our agenda tonight is vote on meeting dates for 2025. Allison had sent it out to everyone. The only thing I'm going to say, I'm still jammed in October. That October meeting is very difficult for me because we still got the stand going. We still have a lot going. School's just getting going for myself. And it's hard for me to get to that meeting. I didn't know if we could just maybe skip that meeting and then go right to November and do from November through, because we go November, December, January, February, March, April. That'll be 6 months. Because after April, I mean, May, you're jamming and you really do move. I don't know. If you still want to keep the October meeting, I'm fine with it. But just some people are still pretty busy in October. I know, Rachel,
Yeah, October is one of our busiest months.
Yeah. And
yeah, I tend to agree. I think if it's okay with everyone else.
yeah.
I'm fine with that. April's less hectic than October is.
Right. So I think if we ask Allison, say we're good with the meeting dates, we just want to eliminate the October date and go from November through April. If everyone's good with that. Is everyone good with that?
I'm fine with that.
With me.
How about that?
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion on that then, okay? Because we got to vote on the meeting dates. So we're going to vote on an amended meeting dates from what Allison had submitted to us. And we're going to go from November, December, January, February, March, and April. That'll be for 6 months. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Oh, I should have asked for, is there a second on it first? I'm sorry. Let's do it. Is there a
I'll
second on
second
it?
it. I'll
Okay.
second it.
And then we'll go vote on it. I have an aye for me.
Aye.
Aye. So we have unanimous approval that we're gonna go for the 6 months from the season 2025 and on through to 2026. So thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to bring up anything for our next meeting or agenda that you'd like to add on to what we got going on? Is there anything anybody can think
Yeah.
of?
One thing, I talked to somebody tonight from the sustainability,
Yeah.
sustainability group. What are they called? Woodbridge Sustainability. Anyway, they are starting to think about Earth Day and wanted to see if we would be present. And so I was thinking we could talk about that at the next thing.
Okay.
That could be our individual farms, or it could potentially even be, you know, a little Ag Commission table.
Okay.
But so we can put that on for next month.
What do you know what date that is, Christina?
Gosh, April, I can't remember. I don't know what the Saturday would be,
All right.
but I think it's
Sometime around April 22nd, right?
so that might be the 26th or the 19th. All right.
All right. Well, we'll put that down for the next meeting, and then we'll get the right date and everything, and we can put that to we can discuss it. Okay.
Yep.
God bless you.
Hey, Christina, Joe's eye.
So I think other than that, I think I can make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
I second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Well, I thank everybody. I'll make sure Allison gets back to everyone with some dates. And then we'll see everybody in February. Okay?
Sounds good.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Good. Thanks, everybody.
Aye.
All right.
You guys.
Bye-bye.
All right. Take care.
Bye.